Welcome to uBook channel. Read and listen to the greatest stories that mankind has ever told. From Iliad to Covid Terror, and other famous classics. Enjoy the best world literatures throughout history.
Covid Terror. Copyright 2021 by Gerry de Cadiz. All rights reserved. A unified Al-Qaeda and Islamic State took advantage of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic in reinvigorating its jihadist cause for dominance and the re-establishment of a caliphate. King of Jordan, Abdullah bin al-Hussein, said, "The world's Muslims have a critical role in global understanding. Our faith, like yours, commands mercy, peace and tolerance. It upholds, as yours does, the equal human dignity of every person, men and women, neighbors and strangers. The outlaws of Islam who deny these truths are vastly outnumbered by the ocean of believers, 1.6 billion Muslims worldwide. In fact, these terrorists have made the world's Muslims their greatest target. We will not allow them to hijack our faith."
Covid Terror. Chapter 2.
Museo del Templo Mayor, Mexico City. November 2, 2019. The city's inhabitants are in prayer. All Souls Day is a time of meditation and remembrance for the souls of those who have died, which is observed mostly not just by Catholics, but also by other Christian denominations. On the way here, he has to walk from the Grand Hotel as traffic was so terrible. The areas encompassing the Catedral Metropolitana de la Asunción de la Santísima Virgen María o los Cielos became a civic ground where a lot of family members congregated. With hundreds of thousands of visitors to regular cemeteries, many Mexicans preferred to pay their respect to their departed ones by offering lighted candles and flowers at the cathedral. "It's nice to see you again, Lainey. My apologies for the abrupt notice of this appointment. I have to do this today." Professor Sean Gabriel Fitzgerald took the outstretched hands and pulled her for a tight embrace. "Why, you're such in a hurry. This is your first visit in this beautiful and melancholic place. Can't you spare a week to enjoy Altapetal, Mexico?" She's always cheerful and kind, in which people would be mistaken to appraise her of being happy-go-lucky. But it's just a wrong impression. Dr. Melanie Moctezuma is the director of the Templo Mayor project, and currently the curator of its museum. I need to be in Tokyo by Monday, for an important lecture the next day. Besides, today is the most opportune time. I can have the entire Tenochtitlan for myself, without any distraction from tourists, Sage quipped as they walked in the hardened path of the temple grounds. The Museo del Templo Mayor is one of the most visited sites in Mexico City. Although he noted that All Souls Day is a national holiday in this predominantly Catholic country, so the place is closed for sightseers. Except for some maintenance personnel and security guards, the surroundings were desolate, very different to the noisy boulevards and commercial establishments enclosing the area. As they enter the museum, Sage closed his jacket. "I know it's not the air, but I sense something unnatural in this place. No tengas mito. It's our ancestors' way of welcoming visitors in their hallowed grounds. Here, look at this one." Lainey pointed to a paneling that resembles to that of a book. "This is called Mexicatlamoxtli in Nahuatl language, the spoken words of our ancestors. It is the Codex Mayabequiano, Folio 70, part of codices which record the Aztecs' history, prior to the arrival of Hernan Cortés on November 8, 1519 in Tenochtitlan, that is present-day Mexico. Sage can see a grisly picture of human sacrifice, in which the heart was being extracted and offered to the sun. The victim's transformed heart flies sunward, on a trail of blood. With a mischievous smile, she explained. Don't get me wrong. You might think that we, your southern neighbors, are a cabal of cannibals. But don't you know that human sacrifice was in this sense the highest level of an entire array of presents, through which the Aztecs sought to repay their debt to the gods? Yeah, I've been to places and seen evidences of human sacrifices. But not this gruesome, Sage remarked without taking his eyes off from the image. A few steps away, she put her hand on a diorama of the Great Temple. Consider also the massive temple pyramids as offering mounds. It is crammed with the land's finest arts, treasures and victims. After the ceremony, these were buried underneath for the deities. So, if you felt something strange, just think of it that the gods are somewhat uneasy with our intrusion. Where we are standing is the greatest of the temple pyramids, in which thousands of prisoners, slaves, and enemy warriors had been sacrificed as a form of atonement for Aztec believers. True enough. Tenochtitlan has been a major object of study in his dissertation at the United Nations University in Tokyo. Even until now that he is standing right at the place, it still surprised him how biased Western literature is. When Christopher Columbus landed in the Bahamas on October 12, 1492, to launch the colonization of the Americas, no one among the explorers would have thought that aside from Castile, Paris, Venice, or Constantinople, there exists a magnificent city in the other side of the ocean. Their idea of the Western Hemisphere was a place of abundant gold, guarded by dark-skinned man-eaters who are fond of human sacrifices. Sage was reminded of his treatise. The Mexico Tenochtitlan was the largest city-state in pre-Columbian America. The city was built on an island in what was then Lake Texcoco, serving as the capital of the expanding Aztec Empire in the 15th century, until it was captured by the Spanish in 1521. We've been through with that in UNU, Laney readily asserted. Her diploma Doctor of Philosophy in Sustainability Science was earned with the constant prodding and support of a classmate, who at that time was an unassuming fellow from California. In a lot of cases, just to pass off the Japanese winter, they would spend their vacant time browsing through the UNU library, and debating on some philosophical points. If you recall, just to put more substance to your theories, I shared with you some confidential documents from Mexico, that the Secretariat of Relations Exteriors would have censored or blocked outright. Even in the 21st century, Mexicans and other ethnic groups still cannot get over with the way the great civilization of the Aztecs was brutally suppressed by the Spanish conquistadores. But let's look at it in the brighter side, flipping her wondrous hair that makes her more attractive. That's right. The Europeans introduced to your people the various classical learning in the arts, sciences, and the humanities, a lot of scientific innovations, and of course, Christianity. He winked at her. If not for them, you won't be enjoying the high fashion of New York, in Central America. Never would you have known the cool beats of Luis Fonsi's Despacito. Instead, you'd still be dancing in front of a huge Tziptla statue of your great god Huitzilopochtli, that is made of amaranth seeds and plastered with blood, then celebrate afterwards, the human sacrifice of a poor captive from Los Angeles. The color on your lips won't be that of L'Oreal lipstick, but of dripping blood from eating the statue. Sage tried to ease the mood in a creepy gallery. His reference to red lips is to highlight the beauty of this mestiza. He missed their bonding and gimmicks in Tokyo. Carefully inputting the digital analysis of the Ypestis medievalis in a customized computer program, Gwen could easily discern its characteristics. The strain belongs to a subtype or biovirus, with the ability to utilize glycerol and reduce nitrate. Its isolate is generally limited to localized regions containing long-term plague foci, from enzootic rodent hosts in Africa and Central Asia. This is the real deal. Going back to the monitor that is attached to the SEM equipment, she studied carefully the image of the sample sent from Institut Pasteur. True enough, a complete genome sequence cannot be done. There is insufficient material to trace the deoxyribonucleic acid structure, to come up with the correct information needed to direct protein synthesis and replication. The ex-VIP is a total wreck. Bordering on fatigue and frustration, she angrily exclaimed to no one in particular. The technical annotations of Hubert indicates his own exasperation of the sample they got from Siena. The Institute's scientists expected that the DNA from Dante would show at least some similarities with those from other Y. pestis strains of his siblings. But this one is so different. Opening a vault with a combination lock, she retrieved the personal effects of Agnolo, which she keeps anywhere she goes. Through the Latin to English translation of the booklet by Monsignor Arthur Catalogo, she learned the life history of the family, and the anguish the writer suffered, when all his 5 children died due to the plague. The same little book revealed how the vile-looking object in the tomb became relevant.
Agnolo di Tura chronicled the Black Death events in Siena, based on observation, and the consultation of public records. He related how in other parts of the city, great pits were dug, and piled deep with the multitude of death. The victims died almost immediately, due to swelling beneath their armpits and in their groins. In fact, some would fall over dead while talking. The cruelty and horror were so tremendous. Father abandoned child, wife husband, one brother another. For this illness seemed to strike through the breath and sight. There was no one who wept for any death, for all awaited death. More than 80,000 persons died in the city's suburbs and countryside. Many believed that it was the end of the world. No medicine or any other defense could be availed of. On that fateful morning of May 1348, Signore Agnolo interned his 5 children, on the consecrated ground of Santa Maria in Provenzano. He has to pay the priest with 100 gold florins, for the necrological prayer in the burial site. When he was about to bury the eldest, Giovanni da Ventura arrived. Citing the circumstances of Dante's sudden demise, the plague doctor advised him to take a bodily sample, so that it could be studied by the senior plaga medicus of the city. And so, he obliged and placed some blood in a glass vial, and securely hid it within the most favorite quill pen of his son.
Gwen got hold of the peniculum, and cautiously pushed the quill point with the calamus away from the vexillum, the feathery part of the pen. Tucked within the 7 mm diameter hollow shaft where a writer can hold the pen, is a glass vial with some rusty element inside. By cursory look alone, she knows what it is. She got a customized glass dish container, and poured to it almost half of the vial's content. Removing the ex-VIP sample and replacing it with the one from the vial, she rerun the scanning and imaging process in the microscope. The output in the SEM monitor was pixelated, but after a moment, it became clear. What the hell? An expression whenever she makes a mistake. It could be a technical error. Gwen rebooted the computer and restarted the microscope. Being suspicious of programming bugs and glitches, the different parameters of the test for the intended sample were also checked for accuracy and consistency. Everything seems to be in order. When the scanning electron microscopy was presented on the monitor the second time around, Gwen was stupefied. She cannot believe what she's seeing. She hurriedly browsed through her laptop, the latest ebook from Elsevier of the Encyclopedia of Microbiology for references, and looked for the specific strain. Likewise, a quick search of the WHO website gave her an article that confirms what the image is. There is no way that she could be mistaken. The specimen's image resembles to the causal agent of the severe acute respiratory syndrome, a contagious respiratory illness that causes a fatal form of pneumonia. This virus was first detected last 2002, in people from southern China. No one can tell where it came from, its causes and transmission. So far, there is no available effective treatment. How could a SARS pathogen go alongside with a Y. pestis virus, in the same location at the same time, among homogeneous hosts? A shiver runs through her spine. For nearly 7 centuries, this virus remained hidden inside the quill pen of a Black Death victim. By the look of it, and recalling the narrative of how Dante died, this is definitely a hybrid type of coronavirus, due to bacterial mutation. Mahabajan at Mahal naming Ina, I Leonio po kami sa kapahamakan. Since high school from St. Mary's Academy, it's the first time that world-renowned geneticist and microbiologist, Dr. Guinevere del Pilar, prayed in Filipino to the Mother of God. Going further inside the temple, Sage and Melanie saw a painting of Tenochtitlan, and a scale model of the Templo Mayor and its surroundings. Even without closing his eyes, it is not difficult to imagine a bustling and delightful panorama of an empire's capital city. Lainey proudly waved her hand to explain, "You will see the ingenuity of my ancestors. Look at these great towers and buildings rising from the water, all built of masonry. The city boasts stunning temple pyramids, one of which is 3/4 the size of the Great Pyramid of Egypt, a well-organized marketplace with about 60,000 people trading daily, and a palace, big enough with 100 comfortable living quarters each with its own bath." The Aztec capital often mesmerized visitors, with its aviary for birds of prey and a zoo for other birds, reptiles, and mammals, an extensive botanical garden with exotic floras, and a wide community aquarium containing various fish and aquatic birds. Sage tries to apply some theories in urban planning. It's not only the symmetrical arrangement of buildings based on its functions and level of importance, making it livable to a huge population. The city's splendor is heightened by its retractable causeway from the mainland, that is wide enough for 6 modern cars to drive abreast, and a very powerful monarch, who rule over an empire of almost 5 million people in central and southern Mexico. His domain was expanded to surrounding territories, to gain tribute and prisoners for sacrifice to the gods. It would have been nice if you came here, at the time you were doing your dissertation. Lainey interrupted him. Due to his medical condition, Sage cannot conduct an ocular inspection of his research locale, when he was still writing the manuscript to finish his degree. So that to gain more insights, he had to read extensively any relevant works pertaining to the Aztec civilization. He continued, not only that they are fierce warriors, the Aztecs were great environmental planners, architects, engineers, and craftsmen. But what puzzles me is, how you can feed and sustain the health of nearly 500,000 population, for instance, even on Tenochtitlan alone. They entered the sacred precinct in the temple proper. From its website, he knows that the museum was built in 1987 to house the Templo Mayor project and its finds, a project which continues work to this day. The museum has 8 main exhibition halls, each dedicated to a different theme. He is familiar with the other rooms. What he is interested only is at room 7. I know that is the reason why you came here. You want to gain some insights on the existing economic condition and agricultural technology at that time. Lainey volunteered to help him. Look at this map. It shows the distribution of the chinampas at the lake system within the Valley of Mexico, at the time of the Spanish conquest. They came closer to a scale model of a chinampa, a representation of the so-called floating gardens. She booted a computer terminal, and brought up a 3D model. Zooming in the image in the monitor for a closer look, she explained, chinampas are artificial islands, that were created by interweaving reeds with stakes beneath the lake's surface, creating underwater fences. A buildup of soil and aquatic vegetation would be piled into these fences, until the top layer of soil was visible on the water's surface. The layered mud, lake sediment, and decaying vegetation are sources of rich nutrients, thus acting as an efficient and effective way of fertilizing the chinampas. How do the Aztecs manage these farms, like irrigation? He is curious if ever these chinampas could still be done today. She zoomed in further, to show the details of the plots and its waterways. Usually measuring up to 90 meters by 10 meters, chinampas were separated by channels wide enough for a canoe to pass. These raised, well-watered beds had very high crop yields with up to 7 harvests a year. Sage deduced that as the realm grows, it means expanding the chinampa system. Its multiple crops per year became a large factor in the production and supply of food, for sustaining the population of the Aztec Empire. She opened a video file of a modern-day chinampa, showing lush vegetation of spinach, lettuce, cilantro, coriander, chard, squash, parsley, chives, cauliflower, celery, mint, radishes, rosemary and corn. These are chinampas in San Gregorio, a small town east of Xochimilco. These floating gardens were constructed and thoroughly tended to from about 900 CE through the 16th century. Many of these plots of land still exist, and are in active use. In fact, there are farmers who exerted efforts to preserve the historical and successful chinampa farming process by means of information technology. Through a website, a farmer can receive orders from customers and deliver fresh produce harvested from these floating gardens. Wonderful! That's pretty helpful in my lectures. Sage exclaimed. I will be delivering a seminar series in UNU on sustainable farming techniques to some international non-governmental organizations for their projects in subtropical third world countries. Sage, can you still keep a secret? Lainey suddenly held tightly his wrist, her eyes imploring. Of course. We've been together for 3 years, and you know every aspect of my life. Now that you're here, I want to show you something. She led him on the side of the Templo Mayor, to a well-preserved structure called House of the Eagle Warriors. For you in modern times, this is the barracks of the security forces of a country's leader. During the Aztec era, its dwellers were called Cuauhtémoc, a special force in the emperor's army. Just like the Praetorian Guard in the Roman Empire, they are the most feared and privileged class, who were dedicated to the god Huitzilopochtli, and dressed to look like eagles. Sage is feeling uneasy. He wanted to discern what Lainey is up to. He teased her, of course, an emperor, surrounded by man-eaters, would definitely need robust and trusted personal bodyguards, to protect him from becoming an instant dinner. And he was answered with a pinch on his side. They passed through an entrance, guarded by 2 large sculpted representations of these warriors. Constructed around 1469, this is a large L-shaped room with staircases decorated with sculptures of eagle heads. They proceeded to the far side of a wall adorned with masks made of human skulls. On your phone, can you access Google Maps and see our location? She seems to be energized by this little adventure. Try to see what building is near us, and where is its doorway. The Eagle Warriors Temple adjoins this structure. It has only one door opposite to us, facing east. Sage tries to put some coherence of what they are doing. Okay, we'll get inside that temple without passing through its door. How on earth? Lainey stomped hard her right foot on the floor tile with some markings, which resembles to that of skull, whose eye sockets did contain eyeballs. She did it 3 times and jumped to another tile. This one is marked with a headdress, decorated with owl feathers and paper banners. 4 or 5 times, her foot stomping becomes intense. She nimbly jumps to another tile, marked with a necklace made of human eyeballs and ear pools from human bones. Quickly, step on that tile near you with a blood-spattered skeleton. Lainey commanded. Stand still and be ready to catch me. Sage did as told. For 8 times, she stomped her foot so hard and jumped towards him. What's happening? He shouted as he caught her in both arms. The tile they are stepping on began to shake. An audible sound of stones grinding against another can be heard beneath them. Hold tight. Lainey put her hands around his waist as they plunged in darkness below. About 2 seconds later, they landed on a soft surface with a thud. Lainey got a phosphorescent lamp from her pocket, and surveyed where they are. Welcome to Maitland. She focused the lamp on her smiling face. We are welcomed by Maitlantecutli, the god of the dead, and the king of the lowest and northernmost section of the underworld. Sage dusted himself off as he was helped by Lainey to get up. He was shaken by the sudden drop. Is there another way of getting inside? As common for secret chambers, there has to be some clever ways of accessing the area. She explained, the decorative tile of the opening above is connected by some sort of metal spring to a rotating masonry disc, same also with the other 3 tiles I stepped on. The stomping I did were meant to unlock the springs in those tiles. A wrong tile sequence and stomping code will open the decorated tile and hurl the unsuspecting intruder to sharpened bronze stakes below. Those drawings on the tiles were symbols of Mitatekutli, or Lucifer in Christianity. He is getting excited. Why are we here? We are in a side chamber, below the house of the Eagle Warriors. Follow my steps and don't be touching anything. The whole place is booby-trapped. He does not need further convincing. The scattered skulls and bones are proof that some fools did certain deadly acts of stupidity. They walked gingerly to the far side of the room. Recognized him. Lainey was pointing to something in front of her. He moved forward and saw a familiar statue. It is a full-sized stone carving in a sitting pose, with thin arms crossed calmly across the chest, and sporting an oversized headdress resembling to that of a bishop's mitre. What is remarkable are the bright red eyes, probably made of fine-grade rubies. I saw this bad guy in the 2018 animated web series Constantine, City of Demons. Sage remarked acidly. That's Mitatekutli. You'll encounter a smaller version of him at Museo de Antropologia de Zalapa. This one is guarding the inner sanctum of the Eagle Warriors Temple. She pushed aside the statue, that resulted to another stone grinding sound. A moment later, 5 similar stone panel protrudes from the left wall. You can guess what it's intended for. But a wrong push result to instant death, from poisoned spears hurtling at your back. After she pushed the 4th slab, the opposite wall shuddered and made a slight opening, enough for an average person to pass through. They entered a big hall, painted on all sides with the typical daily lives of the Aztecs. It depicts a market day, a hunting scene, jaguar warriors in full attack, bountiful rows of chinampa, ritualized cannibalism, human sacrifice, and the usual household chores. The right wall is dominated by a huge mural of an imposing figure in colorful regalia, dutifully guarded by eagle warriors, and accepting tributes from different subjects of his imperium. Lainey placed her hand reverently on the mural. This is the look-alike image of Moctezuma Xocoyotzin, the last Aztec emperor. Sage approached a tablature with an engraving, similar to the one he saw featured in National Geographic. This is a miniature version of the Aztec calendar stone, she clarified. But in this place, it has a different purpose. To his surprise, Lainey easily rotated the centerpiece, the one depicting a head and various ornaments. The 15th century people of this part of the world had designed an advanced locking system, same with our modern-day bank vault. If you erred in giving the right combination, the holes on this knob will shoot poisonous arrowheads, with still unknown substance. She aligned a triangular figure atop the head to an engraved sun with multiple rays. A wall panel, almost unrecognizable and discreetly placed on one side, opened to another room. When they entered, Sage held his breath for several seconds. He could only see the scene in movies. Behold, the treasure of Moctezuma. Lainey explained triumphantly. In front of them are centuries-old oak chests in good conditions. Producing some ancient brass keys from her purse, Lainey opened the nearest one. It is full of pre-Columbian gold in various forms, in nuggets, veins, leaves and even powder in clay containers. About 5 other chests bore the same contents. Another box contained golden jewelries, artifacts, palace ornaments, and decorations, ceremonial daggers and several forms of gold medallions. The last chest contains the personal effects of an emperor, a headdress embedded with precious stones, a sword with gold handle and hilt, gold and silver body ornaments, bright-colored garments, and several codices. I brought here a portable weighing scale. I reckon that based on the current market price per troy ounce, all these gold will amount to about $1 billion. The rare objects in the last chest could chip in another couple of $100 million, if auctioned because of its rarity and authenticity. I thought it vanished during the La Noche Triste. It was all that Sage could say. The lost gold attributed to the last Aztec emperor became a favorite treasure legend in modern times. There was an unwritten history of what happened on the night of July 1, 1520. Lainey settled to a sober mood as she explained. Months before the Great Massacre at Templo Mayor, the Aztec nobility were already suspicious of the motive of the Spaniards. The foreigners were foraging the entire city, not for food but for gold. They even committed a lot of atrocities, to compel the citizens and native nobles to partake any valuables. When the emperor learned of this, he instructed his son and heir apparent Subspecie, to find a way that the empire's treasures will be secured. It came to pass, that the crown prince ordered the eagle warriors to construct under their barracks and temple, some secret chambers. When open hostilities erupted and Cortés and his men were forced to flee from the city, the gold and other precious items they hoarded had to be cast into the causeway, to lighten their loads and escape from the pursuing Aztecs. These treasures, including those which came from other temples, as well as tributes from all Altepetl under the domain of the Aztecs, were the ones retrieved by the eagle warriors from the bottom of Lake Texcoco right after the battle. So, this is the Aztec imperial treasury. Why do you know all these things? Lainey showed Sage her medallion. It's an Aztec calendar crafted in an unblemished 24-karat gold. The obverse side is embossed with a finely stenciled coat of arms of the Spanish nobility, having an inscription Descendientes del Emperador Mexica Moctezuma II. The metal side illustrate a laser printing of the name, Tecuicpo Melanie Hidalgo de Moctezuma. Don't be surprised, but I'm a direct descendant of Emperor Moctezuma. I never told you about it when we were classmates, for fear that you will just make fun of me. By wills and traditions, my ancestors, and the Duke of Moctezuma de Tultengo, who happens to be the present Presidente del Gobierno of Spain, gave me the full authority to negotiate the release and transfer of these treasures to the family's coffers. At first, the Mexican government made a very strong objections, but later on conceded, if they would be given a certain portion of it. They acceded that by legal precedents and hereditary rights under international law, these treasures belong to the heirs and descendants of the great Aztec Emperor Moctezuma. They passed through a small opening above their heads, and landed on the confined space of the Eagle Warrior's temple. The cover was effectively sealed from below, and no trace of it can be seen within the temple. A perfect hiding place for a treasure trove. As they go out from the only door of the temple, she tapped his shoulder. Sage, it's not the treasure that I really want you to see. It's something else, which I think is very important. I'm getting nervous as you're full of surprises. What is it then? She replied with a question. Did you not wonder why is it that for half a millennium, those treasures did not fall to the hands of outsiders, despite the Spanish colonization, the Mexican Revolution for independence, and the modern actions of the government towards modernization? Not waiting for a reply, she ominously declared, it's because that treasure is cursed. She made the Catholic sign of the cross. He pushed for further explanation. How is that so? A week before the emperor was murdered, he let Princess Subspecie and Princess Tecuicpo swear a solemn oath, that they and their progenies will forever protect each other, continue the regal lineage, and secure the treasure at all cost. The prince led the Eagle Warriors in several charges against the Spaniards during the Noche Triste, and was consequently killed in the pitched battle. My namesake, the princess, did her part in sealing the treasury with an intricate security system. To dissuade any enterprising robber in gaining an access, she placed some sort of a curse to the portal's knob at the temple. Sage wanted her to spill it all. Is it some sort of black magic, or voodoo apparatus? I know you'll be skeptical. But I realized that it's founded in science after all. She emphasized more. In the mid-16th century, the Cocalistly epidemic ravaged through, and killed 15 million inhabitants of Mexico and Central America. The infection was a form of viral hemorrhagic fever, including dehydration and gastrointestinal problems. What is the connection of that epidemic to the curse in your treasures? I believe that the Cocolistli may have been triggered, with the release of the virus coming from the curse. Our ancient family journal records a certain event, about the said scourge.
On the night of the 27th day of February, in the year of our Lord 1545, a certain Fulgencio de la Maz, a minor by census but a notorious thief most of the time, treacherously accomplished in entering the subterranean sanctum of the Eagle Warrior's temple. With an intent of robbing the treasury, he tried to manipulate the lock to the door. However, by the grace of our great ancestor Emperor Moctezuma, he failed. Subsequently, he was arrested and made to answer before the Spanish magistrate. After a day in prison, he began to complain of severe pain in the stomach. The commandante noted that the prisoner's right palm was swelling and had some minuscule pricks, most likely by pointed objects. By evening, de la Maz had a very high fever that led to his death after vomiting blood. It was reported that his wife and sons, who visited him a day before, died also. Within a week, everybody from that prison compound died of the same disease. The Médico Superior del Nueva España admonished the Spanish community in Mexico, Tenochtitlan and nearby principalities, to take precautionary measures for this latest Atremors, the great pestilence, which devastated medieval Europe. For 3 years, the disease was utterly catastrophic, claiming millions of people, so that several ciudad and pueblo were abandoned, and left to the elements.
That attempted robbery caused my ancestor to put in place additional security mechanisms, such as sharpened stakes, poisoned spears and the reliable curse on the knob. Subsequent descendant caretakers like me, were taught specifically of the intricate safety protocols in accessing the treasure. Ever confused, Sage remarked, "How do this ancient curse have anything to do with me?" She gave him an object resembling to that of a rosary, with beads made of fine ceramics. That is a part of the locking mechanism. According to my father, if the knob is turned in the wrong combination of images, one of these beads will be shattered, and the lock's arrowheads will dip into it, before shooting and puncturing the hand of the unlucky intruder. He made a presumption, in other words, these beads contain some substances, or maybe a specimen, that had caused the Cocolistli epidemic, right? That's also what I suspect. Through UNU in Japan, I know that you can contact some experts of WHO to study this thing. Once the treasures are removed, the entire complex will be open to the public for tourism activities. Sage could clearly imagine the doomsday implication. You're right. It will be very unfortunate, if this curse will be accidentally opened, or some terror-minded freaks got their hands to it. On the other side of the world, the issue is not about great civilizations, but rather on revolutionary movements that can destroy nations. The Ad-Dawla al-Islamiyya fil Iraq wa Sham, popularly known as Islamic State, suffered a major blow in its caliphate leadership. On October 26, 2019, a composite task force, deployed by the U.S. Joint Special Operations Command comprising of Delta Force, Army Rangers, and airborne units, conducted a raid at Syria's Idlib province to capture Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. The ensuing operation subsequently led to a chase of the ISIS leader by military canines. After being cornered in a tunnel, the terrorist killed himself with 2 young children, by detonating a suicide vest. The death of al-Baghdadi created a void in the leadership structure, and advocacies for an end to global conflicts and terrorism gained prominence in many governments. When the news of his death broke out in global media, several heads of state and officials reacted. The kingdom appreciates the U.S. administration's efforts to pursue members of this terrorist organization that distorted the real image of Islam and committed atrocities and crimes. Saudi Arabia continues its efforts with its allies, especially the United States, in fighting terrorism. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman congratulated President Donald Trump, describing the Special Forces Operation Kahlefeld as a historic step in the fight against extremism. The killing of Daesh's ringleader marks a turning point in our joint fight against terrorism. Turkey will continue to support anti-terror efforts, as it has done in the past. I am confident that a decisive struggle against terrorism, in line with the spirit of alliance, will bring peace to all of humanity. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan posted on Twitter. We call for a unified action and a comprehensive perspective that takes into account the security, development, and ideological dimensions in the fight against armed groups. Ahmed Hafez, the foreign minister of Egypt, indicated that it was an important step in the efforts to combat terrorism. In Jordan, Foreign Minister Ayman al-Safadi referred to al-Baghdadi's death as a significant step in the two countries' continuing war against terrorists and their ideology of hate. Jordan will remain at the forefront of efforts to destroy this evil, in cooperation with our partners in the global coalition. The killing of the criminal Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is a severe blow to the ISIL terrorist organization. We salute our brothers and allies on their efforts and success in finding him and getting rid of him. Bahrain Foreign Minister Khalid bin Ahmed Al Khalifa tweeted. A post by the French Defense Minister Florence Parly indicated that the fight against ISIL will continue. Baghdadi, early retirement for a terrorist, but not for his organization. We will continue the fight against Daesh ISIL without rest, with our partners, adapting ourselves to new regional circumstances. The death of Baghdadi is an important moment in our fight against terror, but the battle against the evil of Daesh is not yet over. We will work with our coalition partners to bring an end to the murderous, barbaric activities of Daesh, once and for all. The Prime Minister of United Kingdom Boris Johnson warned that the battle against ISIL is not yet over.
Thank you for watching. Write in the comments section for your request as to what book, usually from Project Gutenberg, you want us to feature in U-Book channel.
Click like to boost the rating of U-Book channel, make a comment for us for the improvement of our services, and share this video to your friends, with the copyright intact. Please click subscribe, and hit the bell button to be notified of new uploads from U-Book channel.